Welcome to our next video on eating basics. In this video, I'd like to focus on the importance of eating real food or whole foods. When I counsel patients in what they can do to enhance their health, that's one of the things that I always bring up is just start eating real food. And it's incredible, but most people today really don't even know what real food is. We're conditioned to eating what's available, convenience foods, etc. But I always have to explain what is real food, and it's very basic. Real food is in its natural state. You know, that's it, plain and simple. And why do we want that? We want it because, number one, it's more live food, and the body does better on live foods than it does on dead foods, just quite simply. Live foods are they have more enzymes, and enzymes are what makes a food live. It also is what makes a food spoil. When a food rots or spoils, it's the enzymatic activity that's breaking it down, and that's exactly what should happen. So if you have a food that can sit on a shelf for 6 months or a year, it just can't have any enzymes in it. So it's not a live food, it's a dead food. And again, when we're looking for energy, when we're looking for feeding the body, when we're looking for more vitality, it only makes sense to be putting more vitality into the body. And that's what whole foods are. That's what live foods are. So get as much live foods as you can, organic whenever possible. And it's not just because that's the latest fad. There's been lots of studies showing that organic foods actually have a higher nutrition content than non-organic foods. And then of course we can talk about the pesticides and the poisons that can be on non-organic foods that just aren't good to have them inside the body. There was one study done several years ago where they actually found 34 different pesticide residues on the skin of one apple. Not a good thing. There was another study done with commercial milk taken right off the store shelf. They found 80 different antibiotic residues in one carton of milk. Not a good thing for a number of reasons. Okay, so we want whole foods. So speaking of milk, let me just take that as an example. So if we have a processed milk, which means it's been pasteurized, homogenized in most cases, it can sit on a shelf for some time before it spoils. What's been done to the milk? Well, it's been subjected to a very high heat for a period of time, and that heat actually kills the enzymes in the milk. That's called pasteurization, and how they know when the pasteurization process is completed is when the enzyme phosphatase is no longer found in the milk. That's called a successful pasteurization process. But you need that phosphatase to digest the milk. So hardly anybody really can digest it, and commercial milk is one of the foods. There aren't many, but there's a few, and this is one of them that I say that nobody should consume. There's just nothing good about it. And then the homogenization process actually changes the fat in the milk to where the fat globules get into circulation where they're not meant to be, and there's research showing that that can be very inflammatory to the arteries, for example. So it's not a good thing. So contrast that with natural whole raw milk right from the dairy, and it's intact, it's got all the enzymes in it, it's delicious, it's healthy. You know, is it dangerous? That's what they'd like you to believe, because they really would love to get that off the market. Well, let me say this, that any milk, whether it be processed or raw, can become contaminated. But there's studies showing that if you contaminate the raw milk, it's actually safer because it's got the enzymes that can neutralize the pathogens. remember, the processed milk does not have the enzymes in it. If you let processed milk sit out on a counter and let it spoil, it rots and it's putrid and it smells and it will make you sick if you drink it. If you let raw milk sour, it actually is still very healthy for you. Becomes a soured milk product. You may not like the taste of it, but it's not dangerous and it won't make you sick to consume it. Big difference. And smell it and you can tell a huge difference. One of them is absolutely putrid and the other just is a little sour. So you want whole foods the best you can. Natural foods. You want natural beef. If you're into eating beef, get the natural beef. Grass-fed natural beef. In nature, cattle do not eat grains. They do not live on feedlots and live off of grains. It just doesn't happen. They're designed to eat grass. And there's a difference in the meat. There's a big difference in the meat. We know that the fatty acid content has definitely changed. And you know, besides that, again, we have all the antibiotics and steroids and everything else that the commercial cattle are fed in the feedlots. Lots of antibiotics. Most of the antibiotics that are consumed in the country are not consumed by people. They're given to cattle. And they're not given to cattle to make them healthy. They're given to cattle because they know that they gain weight faster when they're on antibiotics than when they're not. That's why they're given. Over 60–65% of all antibiotics are given to animals in the United States. So get the natural beef. We know that the fatty acid content is totally different. Natural grass-fed beef is loaded with conjugated linoleic acid, a very important fatty acid. Also helps you lose weight. It doesn't put weight on, helps you lose weight. The feedlot cattle are loaded with omega-6 fatty acids. These are a group of fatty acids that are pro-inflammatory. They actually cause inflammation in the body. The omega-3s that are in the grass-fed beef are loaded with the omega-3s, which most people are deficient in. And then the omega-3s are anti-inflammatory and much healthier. So most people have too much of the omega-6s already in their bodies. That's one of the big differences in the beef. So always think natural, always think as close to nature as possible, and you're better off. Get the produce organic. If it's not organic, I realize it's not always possible. If it's not organic, make sure you wash it thoroughly. Get as much of the sprays of the pesticides off as possible. Organic eggs are available, and again, there is a big difference in the nutrition. One of the things that I always ask people to do is look at the color of the yolks of the eggs. You know, just take a typical commercial egg in a grocery store, break it open and look at the color of the yolk. Usually it's a very, very pale yellow. Get a good organic egg. Free range is better. Crack it open, look at the color of the yolk. It'll be a bright yellow. That ought to tell you something. So for the purposes of this video, the point is let's get back to eating real food. And again, let's, if you're not totally aware of what that is, just think, is this in its natural form or has this been processed? Obviously, if it's in a can, if it's in a box, if it's in a package, it can't have enzymes in it, it's not alive, it's been processed, or else it would spoil like a food normally would in nature. So get as much live food in the diet as you can, get it in every day, and if you have a problem getting it into the diet, juicing is a wonderful thing to do. We'll elaborate on that in a future video, but I encourage people to get a juicer, and you can get them relatively inexpensively. They're not, you don't have to get a super duper one, and that's a good way of getting live raw foods into the diet if you're not able to otherwise. Thank you for watching.